The sound of the deadbolt sliding home behind me was louder than the thunder outside. Not because it was metal on metal, but because it meant I was officially locked out of my own life. My name is Colette. I am 31 years old, and I work as a forensic accountant, the kind that gets called when people swear nothing is missing and the numbers are still bleeding. That night, I stood barefoot on the front porch of my childhood house, rain cutting sideways under the porch light, my phone in one hand and my car keys in the other. My suitcase sat open at my feet like a mouth that could not close. I could still smell the dinner I did not get to finish, rosemary and steak, the kind of meal my father insisted we eat together to prove we were a family. Behind the glass, my father, Sterling, hovered in the hallway like a judge behind a bench. His robe was pressed. His hair was perfect. Even his anger looked expensive. "You do not get to embarrass me in my own home," he said through the door, like I was a stranger trying to sell him something. "You want to play hero? Fine, go be a hero somewhere else." I swallowed, tasting salt and rain. "I did not embarrass you, I told the truth." "The truth," he repeated, and I heard my brother Beckett laugh behind him, a short, mean little sound. "The truth is you are dramatic. The truth is you have always been dramatic." I looked past my father's shoulder and saw Beckett leaning against the wall, arms folded, wearing the same smug grin he had worn since we were teenagers, and he learned our parents would clean up anything he broke. He lifted his glass of bourbon, like he was toasting me from inside my own house. I forced my voice to stay steady. "If the clients find out their money is being moved without authorization, you know what happens." Sterling's eyes went thin. "You think you are smarter than me because you count other people's pennies for a living." "It is not pennies," I said, and my hand started to shake, so I curled my fingers tighter around my phone. "It is retirement accounts. It is trusts. It is people who worked 40 years and believed your name meant safety." That is when he smiled. Not warmly, not like a father, like a man who had just decided he no longer needed to pretend. "You are cut off," Sterling said. "And do not come crawling back when you realize the world does not care about your feelings." The porch light flickered once, and for a second in the reflection of the glass, I saw myself the way they always wanted me to be. Small, wet, quiet, grateful for whatever scraps they allowed. But inside my pocket, my phone buzzed, a soft vibration against my skin, and I felt the notification without looking. The transfer had cleared. I did not smile. I did not gloat. I just lifted my chin and stared at Sterling through the glass like I was memorizing his face for a courtroom sketch. "Open the door," my mother whispered somewhere behind him, and I heard it in the way you hear a weak signal, present, but already fatting. Sterling did not even turn his head. "No." Beckett's grin widened. "Guess you should have stayed in your lane." My stomach tightened, not from fear but from something colder. Recognition. The lane they wanted me in was not a lane. It was a cage. I bent down, snapped my suitcase shut, and dragged it to the bottom step. The rain soaked my hair. My shirt clung to my back. My hands were numb, but my mind was clear in a way it rarely was around them. I looked up one last time. "You are making a mistake." Sterling's mouth curved. "No, Colette, you are." He turned away from the door like I was already gone. And then the porch camera above the light blinked red, recording my exit like evidence. I walked to my car, suitcase wheels grinding over wet stone. My breath came out in short puffs. I felt Beckett watching from inside, waiting for me to break, waiting for me to look back and beg. I did not. When I reached the driveway, my phone buzzed again, and I finally glanced down. A number I knew by heart had just hit my account. Not Sterling's. Not Beckett's. A private escrow release tied to a case I had been building for months, quietly, carefully, like you build a trap you only get one chance to spring. My thumb hovered over the screen, and a thought cut through me, sharp as a needle. If they think I am powerless, they will get careless, and careless people always leave fingerprints. Hold on, tiny break. I read the comments when I'm worn out, and seeing your location reminds me I'm not telling these stories into an empty room. Like, subscribe and drop your city, state, or country. Now, all right, let me take you back. It started years before that porch. Back when I still believed a last name could be a shelter. Sterling ran a private wealth firm that catered to people who liked their money quiet and their loyalty loud. He did not sell investments. He sold belonging. He shook hands at country clubs, sat on charity boards, and made widows feel safe just by smiling at them. In our house, everything was polished. Floors you could see your face in, dinners that had rules, conversations that felt like depositions. Sterling liked control so much he made it look like love. Beckett was his proof of legacy. A son with Sterling's jaw, Sterling's confidence, Sterling's habit of speaking like he was already right. He failed upward his entire life, not because he was talented, but because Sterling could not stand the idea of anyone seeing a crack in the family brand. I was the opposite. I was the daughter with questions. When I was 16, I found a bank statement in the printer tray, left there by accident. I remember the paper was warm, fresh ink, and the numbers looked wrong in a way my brain could not ignore. A withdrawal that did not match the pattern. A transfer labeled with a client name I recognized from Sterling's holiday card list. I brought it to my mother first, thinking she would gasp, hold me, say we should talk about it. She just stared at the page, then at me, like I had handed her a grenade. "Put that back," she whispered. "Your father will handle it." "But it's not right," I said, heart pounding. "If it's a mistake, we should fix it." My mother's eyes went shiny, not with anger but with panic. "You do not understand. You do not get involved." That was my first lesson. In our house, right and wrong were not moral categories. They were public relations problems. By college, Beckett was already being introduced as future partner, even when he did not know the difference between a custodian and a trustee. Sterling paid for his mistakes with the ease of a man swiping a card he never had to look at. I went the other direction. Numbers felt honest. They did not flatter you. They did not love you. They just told you what happened. I studied accounting and specialized in fraud examinations, the branch of the world where you learn that criminals are rarely geniuses. They are just confident, and confidence makes people stop looking. When I got my first real job, I did not even tell my family what I did. It was easier to let Sterling believe I was doing audits somewhere boring. He loved boring. Boring meant controllable. But my work kept pulling me into the same types of stories. Missing money, forged signatures, paper trails disguised as paperwork. And then, 2 years ago, my supervisor slid a file across my desk and said, "This one's sensitive." The client was a regional bank that managed accounts for high net worth families. The complaint was simple. A handful of wealthy retirees had noticed odd delays. A payment here, a transfer there, nothing huge, just enough to make them uneasy. When I opened the transaction history, my throat tightened. The receiving entity names were disguised, but the pattern was familiar. The routing sequence, the timing, the way the amounts sat right under internal review thresholds. It felt like walking into a room and smelling someone's cologne from childhood. Familiar, unwanted, impossible to ignore. I ran one of the recipient entities through a corporate registry search. The address came back as a mailbox service, 20 minutes from my parents' house. I remember sitting back in my chair, my skin prickling and whispering to myself, no way. Because if my instincts were right, it meant Sterling was not just cutting corners. It meant he was stealing in the exact way I had been trained to recognize. I did not confront him. Not then. People like Sterling do not confess when you accuse them. They punish you for noticing. So I started building a case like I build every case. Quietly, patiently, I traced the money through layers of harmless-looking companies. I mapped signatures, timestamps, approvals. I watched how the transfers spiked when the market dipped, like someone was covering losses with someone else's safety net. And the deeper I dug, the more the story changed shape. It was not just Sterling. Beckett's name started popping up on authorization logs he should not have had access to. Late-night approvals, backdated forms, notes like "client requested urgent adjustment," written in a tone that sounded nothing like our elderly clients who still used landlines and wrote checks by hand. My brother had always wanted the rewards without the work, the prestige without the burden. So he found the easiest shortcut, to use Sterling's power like a key. And Sterling, in return, used Beckett's chaos like proof he was still needed. The night I finally said something at dinner, I did not do it dramatically. I did it the way you speak when you know a room is full of landmines. "Dad," I said, setting my fork down carefully, "I need to ask you a question about the firm." Sterling's eyes lifted, calm warning. "We are eating. It won't take long." Beckett smirked into his glass. "Here we go." I kept my gaze on Sterling. "Are you moving client funds between accounts without their signatures?" The fork in my mother's hand clinked against her plate. A tiny sound, but it felt like a gunshot. Sterling did not blink. "What did you say?" I felt the air thicken. My pulse thudded in my ears. "I have records, Dad, I have seen." He stood so fast his chair scraped the floor. "You have no idea what you are looking at." "I do," I said. and my voice shook, not from uncertainty, but from grief. "And if you keep doing it, you are going to destroy everything." Beckett laughed, sharp and loud. "She thinks she's a cop." Sterling turned toward Beckett like the movement itself was protective. "Enough." Then he faced me again, and his expression had that cold, precise fury I had seen when he disciplined staff or crushed someone at a meeting. "You will not threaten me at my table," he said. "I'm not threatening you," I whispered. "I'm begging you to stop." Sterling's jaw tightened. "Get out." That was the beginning of the end. And by the time I stood on that porch with rain in my hair and the deadbolt locked, I understood something I had refused to accept for years. They did not hate me because I was wrong. They hated me because I could prove it. And the transfer that cleared that night was not a lottery win, not a fantasy fortune. It was leverage, because while Sterling was busy slamming doors, I had been buying the keys. I did not go back to my apartment that night. I drove until the rain thinned into mist, parked under a flickering streetlight behind a 24-hour diner, and sat there with my hands still on the steering wheel like I was afraid my body might float away if I let go. My phone screen glowed in the dark car. The cleared transfer sat there, neat and emotionless, the exact opposite of what I felt. My chest was tight, my throat raw, and my eyes kept burning even though I refused to cry. I kept hearing the deadbolt. I kept seeing my father's face through glass, confident I would come back broken. I pulled up a contact I had not used in months. Thayer. He was a risk officer at the bank I was working with, a man who spoke softly and never promised anything out loud. He also owed me, not money, something more valuable. He owed me discretion. He answered on the second ring, voice low and alert. "Colette, I need a favor," I said. My voice sounded calmer than I felt, which scared me a little. Silence. Then, "Is this about your father?" My fingers tightened. "How do you know that?" "You do not call me after midnight for fun," Thayer said. "Tell me what you need." I stared through the windshield at the diner's neon sign blinking on and off like a tired heartbeat. "I need to know who holds the paper on my parents' house. The mortgage, the note holder, everything." Thayer exhaled slowly, and I could picture his eyes narrowing behind his glasses. "That is not a normal favor." "I know. And if I give you that," he said carefully, "you are going to do something with it." "Yes." "You are shaking," he said. I glanced down and realized he was right. My hand was trembling. I pressed my palm to my thigh to steady it. "I have been warning him for 2 years. He locked me out tonight, Thayer, like I was trash on the porch." Thayer's voice softened by 1 degree. "Where are you?" "Safe." The word tasted strange, like something borrowed. Another pause. Then, "Text me a secure email. I will send what I can without exposing myself." "And Colette." "Yeah, be careful. Men like him do not just lose, they retaliate." "I'm done being careful," I whispered, and that was the most honest thing I had said all night. When I hung up, I sat there until my breathing slowed. Then I opened a notes app and started outlining what I needed, not like a daughter, but like a professional preparing a case file. Dates, accounts, entities, weak points. The thing about financial predators is they always think the numbers will protect them. They forget the numbers can also testify. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. For a second, my stomach dropped, because I thought it might be Sterling calling from my mother's phone, ready to twist the knife. But when I answered, the voice that came through was thin, almost frightened. "Colette," my mother said. I stared at the dashboard. "Mom," her breath hitched. "I only have a minute. He's asleep. Beckett took my phone, so I'm using a prepaid I keep in my sewing kit." I swallowed hard. "Why are you whispering?" "Because if he hears me, it will be worse," she said. Her voice trembled, and I hated that part of me still reacted to it, still wanted to save her. "Where are you, honey?" "I'm fine," I lied, because if I told the truth, I would crack. A soft sound, like fabric moving. "Your father he's angry. He says you humiliated him." "I did not," I said, and my voice sharpened. "He humiliated himself." "Please," she whispered. "Just listen. Sterling is planning something. He kept saying he will make sure you never work in this town again. He was making calls. He mentioned someone named Rhodes." My throat tightened. I knew that name. Rhodes was a partner at a big regional firm, the kind of man who sat on boards and quietly ended careers with a few phone calls. "What did he say?" I asked. "I don't know. He stopped talking when I walked in," she said, voice frantic. "But Colette, your father is scared. I saw it. Not the yelling, underneath. Like he knows something is about to collapse." I closed my eyes. The scent of rain and diner grease filled my nose. "Mom, did you know?" Silence. Then very softly. I knew enough to be afraid. The words hit me like a slap because they were not denial. They were an admission in the only form she could manage. My mother had not been ignorant. She had been compliant. "I have to go," she whispered. "He's waking up. Please, please do not come back here. He is not himself." I almost laughed at that, because Sterling had always been exactly himself. "Good night, Mom," I said. She hesitated. "Colette, I'm sorry." The line went dead. I sat there for a long time, staring at my own reflection in the windshield. Then I did something I had never done before. I stopped hopping they would love me correctly. The next morning, I booked a room at a small hotel near the city. Nothing fancy, no recognizable chains, and I slept for 3 hours in my clothes. When I woke up, the anger was no longer hot. It had cooled into something usable. My laptop opened on the desk like a confession booth. I logged into my work portal, pulled the most recent reports, and started cross-referencing the transfers I had already flagged. The more I looked, the clearer it became. Sterling was not just moving money to cover losses. He was smoothing over Beckett's messes, the same way he always had, except this time the mess was made of other people's lives. At noon, Thayer emailed me a single PDF with no greeting. It had the mortgage holder, the servicer, the loan number, and a note in the margins that made my stomach flip. Delinquency, 90 days. Default notice pending. Sterling had always talked like the house was a fortress. Turns out it was a stage set held up by debt and ego. I pushed my chair back and stared at the ceiling for a moment. Then I opened a new browser tab and started forming something that made my pulse race, not with fear, but with precision. If the bank wanted out, I could be the exit, not as Colette Henderson, not as the daughter, as an entity. I registered an LLC that afternoon through a service I trusted, one I used for corporate clients who needed privacy. I named it Ashwick Capital. Plain, forgettable, the kind of name that did not invite curiosity. By evening, I was on a call with the bank's distressed asset team, voice steady, posture straight, hair still damp from a shower I took too quickly, because I could not stand feeling like their porch was still on my skin. A woman named Arden spoke first, her tone professional, skeptical. "Ashwick Capital is newly formed," she said. "We do not typically sell notes to entities without a track record." I kept my voice light, almost bored. "Then don't sell it to me. Keep it. Hold the risk. Explain to your board why you kept an unstable, high-profile client on the books when you had an offer in hand." Silence. I could hear someone tapping a pen. Arden cleared her throat. "You sound familiar." "I work in the industry," I said, "and I pay fast." She hesitated. "We would need proof of funds." I sent it while we were still on the call. The number that appeared in her inbox did not just prove I could buy the note. It proved I could buy the building she was sitting in. Arden's voice changed, not friendly, respectful. "We can draft terms." "Good," I said, "because time matters." After I ended the call, I did not celebrate. I did not smile. I just sat there, hands folded, listening to the hum of the hotel's air conditioner. For years, Sterling had held power over me because he controlled the doors. The money, the story. Now I was writing a new story, and it did not require his permission. 2 days later, my phone rang again. This time, it was a number I recognized without needing to see the name. Beckett. I let it ring until the fourth buzz, long enough to make him feel the uncertainty I used to swallow for him. Then I answered. "Hello." His voice came out strained, too quick. "Colette, finally." I pictured him packing, jaw tight, trying to sound like he still had the upper hand. "What do you want?" "Don't do that," he snapped. "Don't act like you're above this." I leaned back in my chair. Above what exactly? A sharp inhale. "Look, Dad's furious, Mom's a wreck. This whole thing is blowing up, and I need help." There it was, the first crack. The golden boy asking the ghost for a lifeline. I kept my voice neutral. "Help with what?" He hesitated, then rushed it out. "A short-term cash problem. 35,000 just to bridge something. I'll pay you back, I swear." I stared at the wall as if the answer lived there. In my head, the numbers were already arranging themselves into shapes. 35,000 was not random. It was a patch, a plug, a desperate attempt to keep something from leaking long enough to pass inspection. "Why do you need it?" I asked. He laughed, but it sounded forced. "Does it matter? You always loved playing investigator. Just, I need it fast." I let silence stretch until I heard him shift, uncomfortable. I could almost see him, the way he always expected people to fill the space for him. "I can help," I said finally. His relief rushed out of him. "Thank you. God, thank you. I knew you'd come through. One condition," I added. "Yeah, sure, whatever." "A promissory note," I said. "Notarized, secured." His tone sharpened. "Secured by what?" "By your interest in anything Sterling leaves you," I said calmly. Any inheritance, any stake, anything tied to his estate. Beckett went quiet. Then, suspiciously, "Why would you need that?" I said. "I'll pay you back." "Because you are asking me like I'm your spare tire," I said. "And I'm not. This is business now." He scoffed. "You're being dramatic." "I'm being smart." Another pause. Then his voice dropped into something uglier. "Dad was right. You've always been cold." I smiled faintly, alone in the hotel room. "Sign it or don't. But if you don't, I hang up and you figure it out." His breathing came quick through the speaker. Finally, he said, "Fine, send it. But you better not be trying to pull something." "I wouldn't dream of it," I said, and I meant it in the most dangerous way. When I ended the call, my hands were steady. My heart was steady. I drafted the note that night with language so clean it looked innocent. Standard. Routine. The kind of document Beckett would sign without reading because he believed his charm was a substitute for caution. He returned it the next morning. Notarized, signature bold and careless. I wired the money within 10 minutes, and within an hour of that, Arden from the bank emailed me the final assignment documents for the mortgage note on Sterling's house. I read the line that mattered twice, just to feel it sink in. The lender of record was now Ashwick Capital, which meant the roof Sterling slept under, the walls he used to intimidate, the porch he locked me out on, was no longer his fortress. It was collateral I controlled. That night, I stood in front of my hotel room mirror in a plain black dress. Nothing flashy, hair pinned back tight. Face bare except for the kind of makeup that makes you look awake even when you are running on rage and caffeine. My phone buzzed with an email from a former family friend. A woman who always sent holiday cards with gold foil and never once asked how I was doing. Subject line, invitation. I opened it and saw the words that made my stomach twist. Sterling was hosting a private fundraiser at the house in 3 nights. Judges, politicians, board members. A carefully curated room full of people who believed his name meant stability. I stared at the screen, then slowly lowered my phone. Because if Sterling was parading strength in public, it meant he needed witnesses for the lie. And lies, when repeated in crowded rooms, get sloppy. I walked to the window and looked down at the city lights. Each one a person who did not know my family's secrets were about to crawl into the daylight. I did not feel fear. I felt timing. The invitation gave me 3 nights to prepare. I booked a flight under my legal name. No aliases, no hiding. If Sterling wanted to erase me, I was going to walk back into his world like a fact he could not argue with. I spent the first night making calls from my hotel room, the second night assembling documents into a clean sequence, and the third night doing something that felt almost ceremonial. I bought a new lockbox, not for jewelry, not for cash, for paper, for the kind of paper that ends careers. The afternoon of the fundraiser, Arden emailed the final confirmation from the bank. The mortgage assignment was recorded. The servicing rights were transferred. The default clock was no longer theoretical. Sterling's house was officially a problem with my name on it. I set my laptop on the desk and opened a folder labeled Henderson. Inside were screenshots of authorization logs, transfer histories, signature comparisons, and a forensic timeline that made the story impossible to spin. I stared at it for a long moment, feeling the old urge to call my mother, to warn her, to beg her to leave before it got ugly. Then I remembered her whispering. I knew enough to be afraid. Fear had been her choice. Mine was different. At 6:30, I pulled into the driveway in a rented black sedan and handed the keys to the valet without looking at his face. The house glowed warm from the inside, lights spilling out onto the manicured hedges. Music drifted through the air, polite and expensive. The kind of string quartet that exists solely to reassure rich people that nothing bad ever happens to them. As I walked up the steps, my pulse stayed steady. My heels clicked against stone. I used to scrub on my hands and knees when Sterling said the staff was not detailed enough. The porch camera was still there. It blinked red as it recorded me arriving. The same door that had been locked against me swung open from the inside. And for a split second, the smell hit me. Old wood, wax polish, and the faint trace of my father's cologne. A security guard I did not recognize stepped forward. Broad shoulders, earpiece, neutral expression. Name? He asked. Colette Henderson, I said. His eyes flicked to a tablet. You're not on the list. I'm not here as a guest, I replied. I'm here as a lender. He frowned. Excuse me. I handed him a business card I had printed that morning. Ashwick Capital. No flourish, just letters and a phone number. He read it, then looked up at me again, uncertain. Call your supervisor, I said calmly. Tell him the note holder is on the porch. He hesitated, then stepped aside, speaking quietly into his mic. I stood there and listened to the violin inside climb higher, brighter, like nothing in the world could ever shift. Then footsteps approached. My mother appeared first, moving too fast, cheeks pale beneath makeup, eyes darting like a trapped animal. She froze when she saw me, and for a moment she looked like the version of herself I used to cling to. The woman who brushed my hair when I was little and promised the world would be kind. But behind her, Sterling arrived, and the illusion snapped. His smile was already loaded, not welcoming, defensive. "Colette," he said, voice smooth, loud enough to be heard by the guests behind him. "How sweet. You decided to come apologize." I kept my face neutral. "I didn't come for that." Sterling's eyes slid to the card in the guard's hand. "What is this?" "Ashwick Capital," I said. "I'm sure the bank mentioned it." For the first time, his smile faltered. "Not much, just enough." "I don't know what game you think you're playing," he said, lowering his voice. Stepping closer like intimidation was still a tool that worked on me. "But you will not cause a scene tonight." "I'm not here to cause a scene," I replied. "I'm here to prevent you from lying to more people." Sterling's jaw tightened, and I watched him do what he always did. He scanned the situation like a courtroom. He looked for witnesses. He looked for angles. He looked for the version of the story that preserved his power. Behind him, Beckett appeared, tuxedo slightly rumpled, a drink already in his hand. He spotted me and went stiff, then forced a laugh. "Well, look who decided to show up," he said. His eyes were glossy, like he had been drinking to steady himself. "You missed the whole speech about family." I glanced at his wrist. The watch was new. Not expensive in the way Sterling's things were expensive. Expensive in the way someone buys when they want to look expensive. Loud, shiny, bought to be seen. My money. He caught my gaze and lifted his wrist slightly. Proud, like he was showing me proof that he could still take from me without consequence. Something in me went quiet. "Let her in," Sterling snapped at the guard, not because he wanted me there, but because he wanted control. "We can talk later." "Tonight is later," I said, and stepped past him into the foyer. The room was full of people who used to look through me. Judges and financial advisors and board members, all holding champagne, all smiling as if stability was an ingredient in the air. I moved through them like a shadow in plain sight. Sterling followed, hand on my elbow for a moment, not gentle, not loving, just ownership. "Smile," he murmured through clenched teeth. "If you embarrass me, you will regret it." I looked at him. "I regretted you for years. I'm done." He released my elbow like my skin burned him. We reached the library, the same room where he used to lecture me about loyalty and gratitude. The fundraiser was centered there, a long table with donation cards, a branded banner for the charity, and a guest book full of names that mattered to him. Rhodes stood near the fireplace, laughing with two men in suits. When his eyes met mine, his expression changed. Recognition, calculation, mild annoyance. Sterling moved toward him instantly, like a man running to his strongest shield. "Rhodes," Sterling said with forced warmth. "A small family interruption, nothing to bother you with." Rhodes looked at me again. "Colette Henderson," he said, "I heard you left town." "I did," I replied. And then I followed the money. A flicker passed over Rhodes's face. Interest, not sympathy, opportunity. Sterling's voice sharpened. "Now is not the time." "It's exactly the time," I said, and I reached into my purse. I did not pull out a dramatic letter. I pulled out a single page. One page changes a room faster than a speech, because paper makes power feel real. I handed it to Sterling. He glanced down, then his face drained in a way I had never seen. Not rage, not arrogance. Fear. It was a formal notice of acceleration. A demand letter, default cures, payment schedule. Consequences spelled in plain language, signed by Ashwick Capital. Sterling's mouth opened slightly, as if his body forgot how to speak. Beckett leaned in, squinting. "What is that?" Sterling's eyes snapped up at me. "Where did you get this?" "I own it," I said. "Your mortgage, your note, your deadline." Beckett laughed once, too loud, too fake. "That's insane, she can't." I turned toward him. "You signed the promissory note, Beckett." His smile froze, because he remembered. He remembered signing quickly, annoyed, impatient, thinking it was a harmless formality. I watched his throat bob as he swallowed. Sterling's voice dropped into a hiss. "You're bluffing." I reached into my purse again and pulled out the recorded assignment confirmation from the county registry. Time stamped, recorded, unarguable. I placed it gently on the table, beside the donation cards. The string quartet kept playing in the next room. People kept laughing. But in this small pocket of space, everything went silent. Rhodes cleared his throat. "Sterling," he said carefully, "is this real?" Sterling's eyes flashed with panic, then anger, then the familiar urge to dominate. "This is a private family matter." "No," I said quietly. "This is a professional matter, and it's about to become public." My mother made a small sound behind Sterling, like she was trying not to cry. I looked at her and saw her hands clenched tight around her clutch, knuckles white. She stepped forward then, surprising me, and slid something onto the table. A flash drive. Sterling turned on her like a wounded animal. "Karen, what is that?" My mother's lips trembled. "It's the recordings," she whispered. "The calls, the ones you made after you locked her out, the ones where you said you ruin her, and the ones where you told Beckett you would move money again if you had to." Sterling stared at her as if she had transformed into a stranger. "You did not." My mother's eyes filled, but she did not look away. "I did." My chest tightened so suddenly, I almost lost my breath. Not because she was brave, because she was finally cornered into a choice. Beckett's voice cracked. "Mom, what are you doing?" She turned toward him. "I'm tired," she said. 2 words, but they carried 30 years. Sterling's face went hard. "You're trying to blackmail me." "No," I said. "I'm documenting you." I turned slightly, and a man stepped forward from the edge of the room. Soren, my attorney, clean suit, calm eyes, the kind of calm that comes from being paid to watch people panic. He held a slim folder under his arm and spoke quietly to Sterling like he was speaking to a client who was already losing. "Mr. Henderson, my client has also submitted a preliminary report to the bank's compliance department and to state regulators. There will be a formal inquiry." Sterling's breath came fast. He tried to recover, tried to stand tall, tried to find the old script where he was the one with authority. "You can't do this to me," he said, voice rising. "I built this, I built my name." "You borrowed it," I said, and my voice stayed calm because calm is its own kind of cruelty. "You borrowed it from clients who trusted you, from a wife who swallowed her own voice, from a daughter you tried to erase." Beckett lunged forward slightly, eyes wild. "Colette, stop. We can fix this. We can talk." I looked at him. "You only talk when you're bleeding." He flinched, and for the first time I saw what Sterling must have seen all along. Beckett was not strong. He was needy. A man shaped like entitlement. Sterling's gaze darted around, noticing people had started to drift closer, drawn by the change in energy. Rich people love a scandal as long as it's not theirs. Rhodes's eyes narrowed. "Sterling," he said, voice low, "if there's an inquiry, we need to distance ourselves immediately." Sterling's head snapped toward him. "Rhodes, don't." But Rhodes took a slow step back anyway, the social equivalent of cutting a rope. And Sterling understood in that moment what I had understood on the porch. Doors close fast when you stop being useful. Sterling turned back to me, desperation leaking through the cracks. "You want money? Fine, take money, but do not do this. We are family." I stared at him. "Family doesn't lock you out in the rain." My mother made another small sound, and I saw tears spill down her cheeks. Beckett's face twisted, and he looked like a child about to scream. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I leaned forward slightly and said, "You have 2 options. You can sign an agreement tonight that hands over control of your remaining client accounts to an independent administrator and admits the unauthorized transfers. Or you can refuse, and I will let regulators find everything the hard way." Sterling's eyes burned into mine. "You think you're powerful because you bought a note." "I think I'm powerful because you can't stop me," I replied. Beckett's voice was barely audible. "Dad." Sterling looked at his son, and for a second I saw the truth. He didn't look at Beckett with pride. He looked at him like an anchor. Sterling's shoulders sagged a fraction. His mouth tightened. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Fine," he whispered, like the word tasted like ash. "Fine, bring the papers." Soren opened the folder and set the documents on the table. He handed Sterling a pen. Sterling's hand shook as he signed, each stroke a surrender. Then Beckett signed too, his signature sloppy, desperate. When it was done, Soren gathered the papers, and I slipped the flash drive into my purse without ceremony. Evidence should never look like drama. I turned to leave. Sterling's voice broke behind me. "You did this just to hurt me." I paused at the doorway and looked back. "I did this to end you," I said quietly. "And I ended you the moment you decided I was disposable." I walked out of the library and into the foyer, the fundraiser still humming, the quartet still playing. But the air felt different, like the house itself knew the lie had been punctured. Outside, the night was cool and clean. The porch camera blinked red again, recording me leaving, only this time I wasn't carrying a suitcase. My phone buzzed as I reached the steps. A notification from Ashwick Capital servicer. confirmed the signed agreement had been received and filed. Sterling's fortress was now paperwork. In the weeks that followed, regulators moved fast. The bank froze accounts. Clients filed complaints. Rhodes stopped returning Sterling's calls. Beckett's license was suspended pending investigation. Sterling tried to posture, tried to threaten, tried to spin the story into betrayal. But numbers don't care about pride. My mother left him 2 months later. Not dramatically, quietly. She packed one suitcase and moved into a small rental near the coast where nobody knew her name. The first time she called me from there, she didn't beg me to forgive her. She just said, "I'm learning how to breathe." I did not forgive her fully, but I did not punish her either. Sterling downsized into a condo he hated, surrounded by retirees who did not care who he used to be. Beckett took a job at a dealership through a friend of a friend, smiling for customers the way he used to smile for donors. Pretending charm was still a currency. And me. I sold the mortgage note to a developer after the dust settled, not because I needed the money, but because I didn't want Sterling's house, even on paper. I did not want to own the walls that taught me to shrink. Instead, I funded a small nonprofit that provides legal and financial advocacy for women targeted by family-controlled financial abuse. Not because it looked good, because it felt right. One evening, months later, I returned to the hotel where I had planned everything and sat in the same chair by the window. The city lights glowed below, steady, indifferent, honest. I opened my contacts and deleted Sterling, deleted Beckett, deleted the old house landline. Each tap felt like removing a hook from my skin. Then I shut the laptop and stood up. For the first time in my life, I walked away from my family without being chased by the need to prove anything. I went home to a place with doors that opened when I turned the key, and I locked them because I wanted to, not because I was afraid.